book, right? Yeah. Electric bass, right? You know that one, right? And I played some piano and I played some saxophone, so I knew how to read music a little bit. I was kind of somewhat musically, educated a little bit. And the way I was taught how to play was to play across the neck, right? Meaning across rather than up and down, right? And to move your hand in positions. There's first position. Electric or upright bass players have very strict positions. I kind of just assume that's position 1, here's position 2, and I kind of just modify my own. But the idea being that underneath your hand right here, 4 fingers, 4 strings, 4 frets, there's like 16 notes right there, right? It's a lot of notes. So you don't have to be searching all over, and as you're playing, it's kind of rude to not ever look at your audience, right? You shouldn't be doing this the whole time, right? That's our job. Learn the tune so we get on stage, we can present, right? So, it's kind of nice to be able to look around and know that underneath my fingers, I know what the notes are. And the cool thing is, just like a piano is made up of octaves, which makes that keyboard not look so intimidating. It's just the same bunch of octaves, right? Same thing from here. From the nut to the 12th fret, there's a set of notes. From the 12th fret on up is the exact same set of notes, right? So it's kind of divide the fingerboard down, makes it a little bit easier to learn. So when I was learning how to play, learning that there's an E, 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 right? And to know that all over the neck, there's a G, 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 to know where these notes are. So as Katie and I were sitting down playing, going over a scale, for instance, it's just a pattern. So now you can take that same pattern. It's a C major scale. Well, now let's move it down to G. Same pattern, right? We're going to try it in A. Right? Same pattern. Hey, when I go up an octave, there it is, right there, right? And so by learning these patterns, all of a sudden it's easier when you get in the band room and you're starting to musically interact with some people, with other guitar players and drummers, to have a couple of those little bags of tricks, under your fingers, literally. So that, same with the minor scale, learning how there's a minor scale. It's the same thing if I want to move it down to F. And there's a couple of different versions in those patterns that you can create, but in its simplest form, to at least have a kind of a go-to one that you can jump to, I've found when you're interacting and playing with other musicians, it really can make you feel a lot more confident in your playing and a lot more comfortable, especially if you're jumping in playing with different musicians. Because that's one of the things I found that has really, even in my years away from Megadeth, one of the best things that I did was go out and play with everybody. I played with a ton of people. I hadn't played cover tunes since I was like 18, living on the farm in Minnesota where I grew up. I'd had record deals ever since, throughout my entire adult life. And one time I did a rock and roll fantasy camp, and these guys were throwing tunes at each other, and I'm like going, gee, I don't know any of these songs. I was like a musical moron, right? So all of a sudden I had to go home and do some woodshedding and do some studying, which was cool because I got to go back and, play everything from, learning some Judas Priest tunes and learning, like a Cream song and all kinds of different stuff, and it was a great experience for me. Again, it was a humbling experience to realize that after all these years, there's a lot that was just never in my vocabulary. So to go back and study and to really woodshed and listen to to those things and get my chops up and get kind of a whole bag of tunes in my arsenal. So, any questions on anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Do you find it hard to remember scales live?
Well, there again, I never play a real, never once have I probably been on stage and had to play an actual, hey, let's bust into that, yeah. But, like, for instance, there are times okay, My Last Words, which is a song on the Peace Cells record, right? And, which is just a pentatonic, just a nice D pentatonic, which is a 5-note scale. We don't play that song very much, if ever at all. And once we winged it out one night on stage, and I just kind of remember to go, yeah, that's right, it's just that, pentatonic, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, it kind of became my frame of reference. As long as I have that box set up right there it is, right? And so again, didn't have to move my hand. My hand, the lick is flying. I mean, you know, and it sounds like there's a lot going on, but the truth of it is, all I'm doing is just raking across the fingerboard. You know, and again, so Mel Bay, right? All these years later, Mel Bay paid off because I can just keep my hand in one position and shred away, right? Joe, did you have a question?
I did.
Yeah.
Is there a bass line of yours that you particularly enjoy playing?
No.
No?
No. They're all hard work. No, you know, there's a lot of them that I like playing. In fact, I'll play one here toward the end that is a favorite of mine because it's kind of like Holy Wars. It's everything and the kitchen sink and, you know, a whole bunch of cool stuff. But, you know, my favorite songs to play live are the ones that you guys like, you know, and right? I mean, you know, because sometimes there'll always be some kid who goes, dude, play the fourth song on the second side of, you know, whatever, you know, Killing Is My Business. Like, dude, you know, there's 20,000 people here, and you want us demand that we play that one song for you, you know? So everybody goes from, you know, woohoo, it's a party, it's a rock show, having fun, and then we bust into some obscure song no one knows, and the place it's like crickets and golf claps, you know? Because no one knows the song. So for me, I preferred, like, you know, when people are having fun, you know, and that to me is when you're on a stage performing, to me, you're there to perform for your audience, right? You're there for them, not them there for you. And that's a shift that happened. I somehow or another, I got that early on. You know, my dad, who was not a musician at all, and he was a businessman who ran our farm, but he would drill that into my head all the time. He goes, you might be good, but you're not great till someone else says you are. That was his famous line, you know? Meaning, you know, don't think too much of yourself, because when you get on the stage and the bar owner, or now the, you know, Live Nation is paying us to play, you know, we're there to play for the people who came to the show. You know, entertain them, think about them. You know, and that's a big hurdle for a lot of us musicians to get over, because we spend all this time wrapped up in our fingerboards for our youth and our early adulthoods, and, you know, and we think that it's all about us. You know, and so I don't know. I guess that's a great realization I came to, and I've had a lot more fun playing music. Kind of takes the pressure off. It's like, I don't know, what song you want to hear? That one? All right, why not? You know, right? And again, that was kind of part of learning those cover tunes. It's like, I don't know, what song you want to hear? You know, you want to hear Break It Along? You know what I mean? And if I knew the tunes, all of a sudden we all had smiles on our faces, and it became a lot more fun. Right?
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
How often do you practice, and like, especially like when downtimes between projects or tours? Or,
right.
And then it sounds like, you know, everybody in the band lives in different places. And
right.
How often do you guys get together and practice?
You know, with a band like Megadeth, and it's funny because we all moved out here. We started in L.A. for about 10 years, and then in '94 we all moved out. Actually, '93 we moved out here. And then we did our Euthanasia record. And then everybody kind of scattered, and I stayed, because I love the desert, right? I love it out here. And when we get together, it's usually for a purpose. You know, like, hey, there's a tour coming up, for instance, right? So we get together for 3-4 days, have a general idea of the songs, so everybody can do some woodshed at home, learn the songs, show up prepared. And then once we're there, then we rehearse those songs as a band, and sometimes if we're going to go do a more theatrical production, sometimes part of that rehearsal is for the lighting people and sound people, and if there's, you know, different stage props or whatever, to get those things. So sometimes they're for different purposes. We just made an album, so when we were making the album, as the songs were being arranged and our drummer Sean was finishing drum tracks, they would send me the completed drum track, and I would sit down at home with iTunes and little earbuds and, you know, a little Line 6 interface into my laptop, right? And I would just sit and I'd practice, and I'd kind of write my charts out so that when I got to the studio, because time is money when you're in the studio, I could be as prepared as possible. So I knocked out 12 songs in about 3 days. But it's because I had a lot of preparation, and I wanted to walk in and really nail it, you know. And I had a lot of different ideas, so we could sift through some different things. So those, you know, from a working musician point of view, those are the types of practicing that I do. today, I guess, is kind of practicing, right? You know, I came in here warmed up a little bit before we do this tonight, so I'm, you know, I just like to have a bass in my hand a lot, you know, as much as I can, you know, because I find that if I play a little bit all the time, I seem to stay, you know, my chops are up, my endurance is up, my familiarity of everything is up. As opposed, and that's, I think, a good thing. I took some piano lessons, and I think it was a Yamaha book, had a really good thing about practicing, where it talked about, you know, better to do 30 minutes 5-6 days a week than to try to just cram 6 hours in on Saturday, right? Because your natural retention isn't going to be there. And one of the things that they suggested, which I've kind of tried to adhere to, is out of, say, a 30-minute practice session, take 10 minutes of it and work on the scales and the some of the things that aren't so much fun, the disciplines, right? Take another 10 minutes of it and play for enjoyment. You know, maybe it's a piece of music you already know, or it's a song you have fun playing, and then make the last 10 minutes of it complete free-form improvisation, so that you can, because those are the moments where all of a sudden you're warmed up. You're thinking musically, and all of a sudden you kind of just forget about all the academics of it, and you can go off and you start creating things. And all of a sudden, a lot of people tap into songwriting like that, because sometimes songwriting isn't so much about academically going, I must play the C-sharp scale right now. It's more about just kind of the free-form thing. So I thought that was the 10-10-10 rule, right? 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So, and I try to adhere to that, and I've found it to be very productive for me. So, hope that helps. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question. What do you use to warm up when you, like, before a show? Because I play in the band too, and sometimes, like, even if I warm up a little bit, it takes me like a couple of 2 or 3 songs to get where I want to
get
be.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, warming up is 2 different things, isn't it? Because, first of all, just me personally, because I actually almost ran into a carpal tunnel issue back in the mid-'90s. Is actually from some basses Lee sold me, I think. They were a 35-inch, and I had the straps too low, and we were playing some pretty ripping stuff. But what I found is, and I actually it was in Fresno. We played a theater, and I had a chiropractor came down, and I said, man, I'm getting this tension and kind of like I'm stressing. I'm thinking it's carpal tunnel. Right away, he grabbed up here on a pressure point, and I guess that's that muscle. Ironically, it's the one that makes your middle finger kind of flip out. But it's this one muscle right here. See, there it goes. There it is. It's flipping out there. But that was basically this meridian that goes down into this area and out to your fingers. And one of the things he told me is he goes, you spend your whole career crunching, playing, crunching like this. So get rid of any of those balls, some of these music stores sell these balls that you can crunch, like as if you're going to get more strength, right? He said, if anything, what you should do is put some rubber bands or something around it and stretch it backward. Sort of like doing bicep curls all day. Well, eventually you got to also stretch out, you got to strengthen the tricep, right? And that was essentially what I discovered with it. So part of that warming up is, sometimes you just... big scale, or do just something like this. Just this room would not be thinking about this. You're texting me, you're talking on the phone, you're not, right? Just anyway, just kind of mindless and just kind of warming up, just kind of getting your fingers moving, And so I find that's one thing to do. Obviously, if you kind of need to get into a tune, maybe sit with your buddy or your drummer, hey man, can you, backstage at some club, can you tap on the couch for me and kind of get our groove going? I find when the band practices a little bit together backstage, you walk out on stage, because I don't care what it sounds like here, when you go on stage, it sounds completely different, doesn't it? I don't care who you are or where you're playing, it sounds totally different, So then there's that adjustment as a performer. Whoa, the lights. Yesterday, we played this gig. It was an outdoor thing, and it was windy. My hair was in my face most of the night. I was distracted, you know what I mean? And I was trying to play, and it was just, you're kind of just going, man, this is bizarre. It's the middle of the day. There's a thunderstorm brewing, and it was just a lot of distractions going on. It was a hard one for me to kind of get